we go. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the S&P Sports Show. I'm your host, Shawn Stewart, and it is November 5th, 2000, and it is a wonderful day. So we have a recap of UFC 281, which happened Saturday at the Garden. Then, of course, college football, and, of course, the NFL. So I have my co-host, Mr. Anthony Paulis.
Yeah, we're doing good tonight. Special World Cup show tonight. I am really excited about this. We're going to go over this a World Cup preview show, and we're going to talk a little bit about the UFC champion, the main fight. We're only going to talk about the main fight, and maybe about the Poirier Chandler fight, which delivered. Other than that, we're going to talk. We're going to talk college, and we're going to talk NFL. So, let's get started here. Let's talk about the big fight Saturday night between Stylebender and Pereira. Shawn, what did I say was going to happen on Thursday?
That there was going to be a fight, in which it did happen.
Did I pretty much call that to the T? Shawn, you there?
Yes, you absolutely did.
That's good to hear. Yeah, pretty much called. I told everybody it was going to be.
You nailed it.
I said it was going to be around a late round four, late five stoppage of some type. KO, TKO. I just saw it coming. Was the stoppage a little early? It might have been, but you knew it was coming. He's just too physically big for him, and too strong. I'm not saying that maybe he's got the skill set that Stylebender is, but Stylebender is just not that physically imposing. And the guy has history against him. And when you run into that one guy all the time, it happens. It's like, let me compare this in boxing terms. It's like Shane Mosley and Ricardo Mayorga, okay? Mosley's probably a better boxer, right? But styles make matchups sometimes.
Right.
And in this situation, Pereira's physicalness offsets the skill set of Stylebender. But if you match him up against somebody else who's bigger and maybe their skill set's better, they might have an advantage over him. As I said, styles make physicality makes fights. And like I told everybody on Thursday, to put your money on Pereira. I hope everybody listened. If you didn't, well, sorry, your pockets are a little bit less. So that's really all I want to talk about in the UFC. Let's get to the
Exactly.
It was a big day Saturday, okay? The Pac-12, there's only one team left now to worry about, and that's USC, because UCLA lost, Oregon lost.
Yeah, it was crazy in college.
So it narrowed two teams down, basically. So right now, to me, barring any major surprises, there's basically 6 teams left for 4 spots. You've got Georgia and Tennessee, who are probably going to win out, right? Because Tennessee's going to win their last 2 games against scrubs and then not have to play again, and they'll have an advantage over LSU, right? And their only loss is at Georgia by 14, okay? That's a good loss, right? Then you've got Georgia, undefeated, probably going to stay that way. And they'll beat LSU, who will then have 3 losses and will be out the picture, most likely. So what does that leave? That leaves the Ohio State-Michigan winner. And Michigan's probably going to have to win that game because of the weak out-of-conference schedule that they had. TCU is undefeated, and they've got Baylor, Iowa State, and Kansas State, let's say, if they play them in the title game. I mean, TCU manhandled Texas more than Alabama handled Texas. So now you can say, like, look, Bama's like the 8th ranked team in the poll in the CFP, but we beat Texas on the road in a more thorough fashion and by a wider margin than Texas did. I mean, than Alabama did. So now they've got stock. Besides beating Texas, they can compare their win to the win over Alabama and say, look what this SEC team did. So I think when this poll comes out tonight, I think TCU is going to be the 3rd ranked
in a couple
team
of minutes.
Yep, I think I'm going to bet TCU will be the 3rd team, and Michigan will be 4. And then the winner, if Michigan
Just
is
because
going to have to win out.
Conference.
If they win out, cool. Then Ohio State might have a play as a 1-loss team. Like, would you rather take a 1-loss Ohio State or a 1-loss USC? USC's losses 1 point at Utah. So the loser of the of the Michigan Ohio State game has to lose by a very close margin. I mean, if it's a blowout, forget it. But if it's a close margin, then you're going to be the 2nd 1-loss team to get in after Tennessee, because I think Tennessee is a lock. So they'll either be the 3rd or the 4th seed, all depending upon if that 3rd seed is TCU and it's undefeated or not. Right? If TCU is undefeated, right, do you take a 1-loss Tennessee or do you take a 1-loss USC? That's the question. People have already seen Tennessee and Georgia. So would people rather see Georgia and USC? That's the question you got to ask yourself. And I think people would like to see that USC Georgia matchup and that high octane offense that USC has. I think it would be a blowout. I think Tennessee's a better team than USC.
Even though USC can score,
they don't have defense, but they have stars. But Tennessee's that's the only way. That's the only way I can see the committee not taking Tennessee's if USC gets in with 1 loss, because they'll have won a conference championship, which Tennessee would not have. Where if it's Michigan and Tennessee, I think Tennessee gets in because they have a stronger strength of schedule. They have blowout wins over LSU. They beat Alabama. They beat Kentucky. They only lost to Georgia by 14. I mean, I think it really matters on the closeness of that game in Columbus. I mean, if Michigan goes to Ohio State and beats Ohio State, they might have a better shot of getting in with 1 loss. Where Michigan, you're going to have to hope for TCU to lose, and you're going to have to hope for whoever plays USC to get a win. Like right now, your people are going to be the biggest Notre Dame and UCLA fans the next 2 weeks, and them playing USC, and then whoever USC plays in the Pac-12 game. If you're rooting for TCU to lose, you want Baylor to win, or Iowa State, or whoever plays them in the Pac-12 title game. But there's like a 99% chance right now, I would say, that you're definitely going to get 1 SEC team. But the only way you're not going to get 2 SEC teams in is 1 Big Ten team, TCU, and USC. And USC would be the 4 seed, TCU 3, Ohio State 2, and Georgia 1. I mean, that's the only way. Otherwise, you're going to get 2 SEC teams in at this point. Other than that, just want to touch a little bit about that sad tragedy in Virginia with the football players.
Virginia, you heard about that yesterday.
And my heart goes out to them. That's a rough thing with that. And
they already announced the time for the Michigan and Illinois game. That's a new game.
Yeah, that's a new Eastern game. I believe the Ohio State game's 3:30 Eastern.
3:30 game. That's ABC. Both those games will be on
There's
ABC.
no way that they were going to put those two teams on at the same time because those are your bell cows in the in the Big Ten, and then Tennessee plays at night on against South Carolina, which leaves Georgia. Georgia's playing some puff on Saturday. This is the weekend of the year where the SEC, for the most part, like all their teams, for the most part, play against the really crappy schools this week. This is like an off.
Yes, exactly. Like especially Alabama, 1 week before Auburn. They do that
they play
every
this is the week. It's soft school. It's cupcake week, as we like to call it. It's cupcake week. So, and then USC, UCLA.
And then also, I was getting ready to say that because Gus Johnson and Joe Clapp will call that game on Saturday night.
So you got to root for UCLA for an upset. I don't know if they can pull it off because
that's impossible, especially with
USC's offense. I just think defensively they're not going to be able to hang and that. And if the only way that they're going to be able to hang is they got to slow down USC early, jump out to a big lead, and then control the tempo and be able to maintain it. But if USC jumps out, then you just throwing the ball. They got to be able to run the ball with Zach Charbonneau. That's the only way they're going to be able to win the game is to be able to control the clock. And they're going to have to put up points. They can put up points. Can they control the clock? Can they run the ball? The best medicine is to run the ball, score touchdowns, and keep that USC offense off the field. That's how you beat them. Or you got to go hammer to hammer and score 40 points and win. So, and TCU's got Baylor this week. I mean, Baylor's capable of a win, but will they? I mean, they couldn't beat BYU. I mean, I expected more of the Baylor team this year. So I'm sure TCU will win. Then they have Iowa State. Should be able to win that game. And then you're going to have the Big 12 championship. All right, let's get into the NFL because we got about 12 minutes before our guest comes. Bills and Vikings. What a crazy game. The Bills had it wrapped up. All they had to do was quarterback sneak that ball, not fumble it. The game was over. They pretty much pulled a Herm Eagles Meadowlands game and lost that game. It's amazing that the Bills actually came back down the field and got a game-tying field goal and sent it to overtime. Kind of crazy. That was definitely the game of the day. The Cowboys choked a 14-point fourth quarter lead in Green Bay because they got too damn conservative. You're up 14. You got the ball. Keep going to your strength. Keep going to CD Lamb. Keep throwing. They just tried running the ball, and the running game started getting stuffed. And the Packers, Christian Watson had a day. 3 touchdowns. And
then just started one against the Raiders.
Then, you know what? And then they figured out the Cowboys, and Mike McCarthy's soft. When it comes to playing premium teams, that dude's always not going to show up. I mean, he's almost like Steve Sarkisian. He just got lucky in 2010 when he won a Super Bowl. Everything was aligned for the heavens. That Packers team had a great defense, just like the Rams did last year. Those two teams are kind of eerily similar. Everything else had to go completely right for them. Even like in the Super Bowl with injuries, like the Packers, the Steelers lost their starting center, who was a Pro Bowl center, and the Steelers running game wasn't right that day because of it. And it also led to a pick six, which the Packers got and won the game by 6 points. So that was pretty much the defining play of the game.
And that was a must win for the Packers, if you think about it.
It was, because you know what, the Packers schedule, and the Eagles don't look so invincible after last night. The Packers can go up in there and beat the Eagles. So you know what? I think the Packers are going to make the playoffs. Like as a 6 seed or a 7 seed, I can see them going 10-7 and getting in. And as Aaron Rodgers says, relax. You know what? They're going to run the table here, I think. Maybe because by then I think the Vikings will probably have the division wrapped up. So they're not going to care about going to Lambeau in week 17 and playing the Packers. Okay. That's a throwaway game because
The
they'll
rest of their
probably
players.
have the division wrapped up, unless the Vikings are somehow playing for that one seed and home field advantage. Then they might say, hey, you know what? Then that game is meaningful. But you know what? Right now, the Packers are probably going to be favored in every game they're in the rest of the season, other than maybe that Vikings
You
game and
check
the
the
Eagles.
schedule.
Every other game, it's Puff City the rest of the way for the Packers. They got like the Titans this week. I know they got to play the Bears again. They got to play the Rams at home. They got to play.
They
They got a
should beat
lot
the
of.
Rams.
They're going to beat the Rams. They should beat the Bears. Okay. They got to play the Lions at home week 18. They got to play the Vikings week 17. I mean, after the Lions game, I thought there was no way in hell that the Packers would go into Philly and win. But after I saw last night, I'm like, if you can force turnovers on the Eagles, it can, because the Eagles have won the turnover battle their first 8 games. But last night, the Eagles turned the ball over 3 times and it flipped this narrative. And that's how the Redskins won the game ugly at that, but they won. So the way to beat the Eagles is you got to force turnovers, fumbles, and interceptions. Yes, they only had one interception, but you got to force turnovers because the Eagles can put up points normally. And they got a good defense, but if you can force turnovers and keep that defense on the field longer, that's what you need. So the Dolphins right now looking mighty
They're first in
good.
the AFC East.
Man, that's crazy. Tua might win MVP. Who would have thunk? Back in a couple weeks ago, we almost wrote that dude off.
Right. I mean, I knew they was going to be better than last season and going to the playoffs, but nobody ever thought they would be in the first in the AFC East.
I'm going to say it. It's the cheetah effect. I really think Tyreek Hill needs to get some serious consideration for MVP because
That's his number one guy.
man, he just stretches out those defenses and opens up running games and Waddle and just man, and yet he's still getting his and more, right? And when the Dolphins are able to put up all these points, it's putting less pressure on the Dolphins defense, right? So
right.
I think Tyreek Hill needs to be he may not be getting that love for the MVP discussions, but he should be. Him and Tua, Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, Jalen Hurts. I guess you could say that's where your MVPs are right now. I mean, if I was going to cast a vote right now, I would probably vote for Tyreek Hill as MVP, but he may win Offensive Player of the Year, but not MVP. And then you got Travis Kelce. I think those are the two guys right now, like in that discussion. And it's crazy that Kelce and Hill were teammates, as crazy as that is. The Raiders. What the hell is going on?
Jeff Saturday's first win as a coach.
I mean, dude, you had a guy that was just bashing you on Twitter that has never coached a game in NFL life and goes in and smokes you in a week. I mean, Josh, the Raiders are a mess. And part of that is Josh McDaniels, and part of that is the previous regime under Mike Mayock, the guy who used to be the NFL Network's draft guru, and then he became a GM and drafted all these guys. They pretty much turned out to be bums. Besides Josh Jacobs, a lot of bums. Like over half their draft class, that more than it, I think, from Mayock in 3 years, it's already gone. It's off the team. Okay? I mean, it's not good for the Raiders. The Raiders are not a good team. You have Devontae Adams. That should have added value to the point where you should have been a playoff team, especially after last season. You got no defense. Derek Waller has gone MIA and then injured. Hunter Renfrow is a shell of what he was. All you have is Devontae Adams and Josh Jacobs, and that's it, and no defense. That defense is softer than Sherman.
And there's a reason why they're last in the AFC West.
And they're going to probably be drafting in the top 5. Question is, what are they going to draft? Are they going to trade Derek Carr in the offseason and then go get a young quarterback and save $25 million or so on the cap and build their team out and just do a total rebuild? Who knows? I want to talk about the Lions game real quick before our guest comes on.
Sure.
It was a win.
I was shocked.
And the first time in 98 tries that the Lions have come back from down 14 to beat an opponent, much less on the road. So I'll give them some props. But I'm gonna blame, people are like, oh, Justin Fields, he's finally here. Justin Fields ain't here, man. He's not here. And I'm gonna explain why. He can have all the running yards he wants, but if you can't throw the ball, what good are you? Well, he doesn't have the receivers. Well, he's got Darryl Mooney and he's got Chase Claypool now, and he's got Kmet. Let me also say this. He had about 150 yards passing, but about 55 of those were on one play with a busted coverage where the tight end was open by 20 yards. I could have thrown that. Okay? So, he really, to me, he only had about 100 yards. Okay? And a touchdown, a short pass to the tight end in the end zone. Okay, off a bootleg. Perfect for him. He's a running quarterback still. The man's athletic and can run. But Ohio, as I've always keep saying, Ohio State quarterbacks are not developed at the pro. But Joe Burrow was an Ohio. No, he wasn't. He stood on the bench for 3 years when he got
He's
the
an LSU guy.
He was okay when his first year at LSU. There were a lot of struggles. But that dude was committed in the offseason under Joe Brady and that offense. And they developed him. And he was there. And LSU developed him. And all that development is on LSU, not Ohio State. It's like Justin Fields. When he was at Georgia for that year and they would bring him in, everybody and their mama knew it was going to be a run play. Okay? Because he knew he was athletic. When Jacob Fromm was the starting quarterback. You couldn't beat out Jacob Fromm at Georgia, dude. So you transferred. Because Ohio State was desperate at quarterback after JT Barrett was gone. You needed a quarterback, right? Then you came up with that whole racist Georgia story to get out of your transfer, okay? Which I don't believe happened. I don't care. It didn't happen. That was just their way to get out of it. It's cool because his sister kept playing softball at Georgia, okay? If it was that much of an issue, she would have transferred too. And obviously she didn't. Okay? So, at this point, Daryl Haskins was never developed and was a bum in the NFL. RIP. Right? The dude who went to college, who didn't think Ohio State was for going to school, didn't amount to much in the NFL. JT Barrett didn't do nothing in the NFL. Troy Smith didn't do nothing in the NFL.
Oh, I remember he was a bum.
And Fields has all the athleticism, but there's no development. Will that change when the Bears spend $130 million this offseason? They better get some receivers because there's a judgment day coming once they spend money and give them wide receivers and an offensive line. If you can't produce after that, then you're a bum. You're a bum. The time is calling.
A certified bum.
Yep. Let's say this. Once the Bears spend the money and get that wide receiver talent, we're going to see truly how good or not good Justin Fields is. And I don't think C.J. Stroud is all that good because he doesn't have the athleticism that Justin Fields has. So when he can't throw the ball to 5-stars on 3-star DBs anymore. And that talent difference is shrunk. You're going to see the whole difference. So that's my take. It was a nice win by the Lions.
All right. So it is we're going to have our guest coming in right now. And
He's
ladies
here.
and gentlemen, he is from the Washington Post, as he's going to cover the World Cup soccer, which will be in a couple of days. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome our good friend, Mr. Chuck Culpepper. How are you doing, my friend?
I'm all right, Shawn. How are you doing? It's 3:20. You see my eyes? 3:25 in the morning.
Where are you at, Chuck, right now? Are you in Qatar or are you in Singapore?
Qatar.
You finally made the trip, because I saw some of those awesome photos that you had.
I was
in Singapore. It looked amazing.
I was kind of wandering across,
I see that, and I really appreciate you coming on for tonight's World Cup special here. And real quick, Chuck, tell us a little bit about what you're doing in Qatar, in what you're covering and everything, before we jump in to talking about some of these teams, the groups, and some predictions.
I'll be kind of one of those designated wanderer here too, sort of bouncing around from club to club. My great colleague Steve Goff will be with the U.S. team mostly, and it's not like I have the other 31. He has them also, but I'll be sort of bouncing around the world and trying to learn things on the go, because each one of these teams, each one of these programs has some drama behind it that everybody who follows it knows.
Every team does, and they all have their own stories of success and failures of past and present, in the present World Cup, and how they got to this World Cup. So, let's go ahead and talk about Team USA real quick. Let's just get that one off the bat here. Tell us a little bit about your thoughts on Team USA, because I have my thoughts on maybe one or two guys that maybe shouldn't have been there, but yet, usually those last 2 or 3 guys are usually bench and morale guys that aren't going to see the field. But sometimes I feel, that the talent needs to oversee that when you're kind of like one of those borderline making out of the group stage kind of teams.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's entirely framed in that I lived in England 16 years ago. I moved there 16 years ago. And so as an American, I used to just hear all the time about, that sort of dismissive pat on the head of, you've got good goalkeepers because you all use your hands in sports. So to me, this U.S. team is sort of the epitome of how that has changed across a generation, how it has evolved, how there's a lot more creativity with the U.S. and a lot more possibility. And of course, when we're talking about it, that it's with the youth of it. Maybe it's a World Cup away from where it's going to go. Maybe 2026 in North America, the 3 countries sharing it is the time. But I think it's a really interesting time for them because of that. I don't think the expectations they're pretty high, but not that high. It's an odd situation to be a team from a country which has a bigger sport that's going on right now, the one you were just talking about. I think maybe in some odd way that with this not being in June, this being in November, that could help as well. With fewer, I think it'll get few fewer eyes on them.
For Team USA, is there going to be some type of breakout star besides Christian Pulisic who's going to break out and bust out in this tournament?
I made a whole list of breakout stars, and I had, of course, Pulisic wouldn't count. I couldn't figure out if he would count as one or not. I think to much of the world, he probably would count as one because, he's obviously at Chelsea, but not a mainstay at Chelsea yet. And certainly our most decorated non-goalkeeper to this point, decorated with a contract, which is the ultimate form of decoration, I guess. But I think I would make him that figure on a world perspective, because I just don't think the world is quite as familiar with him as maybe it's going to be. So when I made my list, I actually didn't have an American player on there.
I agree with
that.
Then
I went back and figured it's him, because he's, the name's been in our heads for 6, 7, 8 years, but it has not been in the world's heads.
I don't even know if he's even the best player on this Team USA.
Fair.
Gio, I almost want to say Gio Reyna is right up there when healthy, in terms of him being in the Bundesliga and just the immense talent that he has. I want to switch topics a little bit. Was there a surprise exclusion that you had for Team USA? I mean, mine was Ricardo Pepi not making this team. Being a little bit worried with Ferreira's form also coming into the World Cup.
Yeah, I didn't really have one. I would say my knowledge of it is probably not as intensive as yours, because while they're playing their qualifiers, I tend to be on other sports a lot of times. But I didn't have one that really struck me in any way, the way that we're hearing, with some other clubs, some other teams.
So with you being in Qatar now, what's the early vibe of what you're, what's the landscape and news going on out there? What are people kind of saying? I mean, besides trying to make a visit to the Conca Cafe, which I saw on Twitter, which looked like a really cool soccer cafe to go to. I guess free drinks for Canadians over there, by the way.
I think the most striking thing, and it is really, really striking, is that on your way in to we're staying in an apartment, but on the way into the apartment, because this is such a small country, and remember the last World Cup we were in Russia, and I had 18 domestic flights during those 35 days. So you had to fly everywhere. Everything's so far. Biggest country in the world. Wow, Russia. Yeah, there's a lot of flights. Now, of course, we'll have zero, and it's about the size.
So I can imagine that because it's a very big country. So I can.
How big how far are the stadiums from us? Because it's so small.
And that's the most striking thing of all of it, is that you can be riding along and see two at once. And they look like they're 2 or 3 blocks from each other. And it's like, whoa. I mean, I guess I kind of expected that, but when there's 8 stadiums in what's basically what we would call a metro area, like say if this thing were in the LA metro area or something, and you ride along and, there's one stadium and there's another one right over there within my, I didn't even have to move my head to see both of them.
That is
it's weird.
I did not know that. That is pretty crazy. That is very interesting. Let's talk a little bit about. We're gonna go. Let's
now,
go.
There was one to ask
here, and talk about each group from Group A to Group H, and then from there we'll talk about who we think's gonna make it out of those groups, and then we'll kind of break down who we think is going to kind of make that progression down. And then maybe who is going to win the Golden Ball Award for most goals, and maybe who the MVP of the tournament is. So let's start with Group A, home team Qatar, Ecuador, Senegal, and the Netherlands. Out of that group, I think the Netherlands obviously has got to be the clear favorite out of that group. But the other 3 teams, Ecuador plays in a tough CONMEBOL. They're mid-level CONMEBOL, but mid-level CONMEBOL is probably like A-level Asia and probably at least A-level Africa. Are they the number 2 team in Group A, or can Qatar or Senegal with Sadio Mane, they got a lot of speed on that Senegal team, maybe kind of overtake Ecuador, which always seems, when they make the World Cup, seems to be kind of an underachiever? Or can the home team behind that crowd get some momentum and squeak by? Because I saw Qatar play a couple times during the Gold Cup when they were invited. They looked okay. Maybe not against the U.S., but against some of those other CONCACAF teams, they more than held their own. And they played in CONMEBOL and kind of held their own. Can Qatar make it out of this group?
Yes. And when I was actually living in Dubai, just across the water in 2010, when they gave out this World Cup, and I remember thinking, wow, that host nation is going to be the worst one ever. And it has not come true at all. And in fact, they won the Asian Cup in 2019. Beat UAE in the UAE and beat Japan in the final. Very, very impressive. All local clubs. They've stopped their league in September, unlike these leagues that just stopped last weekend, to give more time and rest for their players. Yes, in fact, I actually think any of the 4 teams can make it out of this, because I really like Senegal as well, and I really want to see that moment when African teams, the furthest they've gone is Cameroon in '90, the Indomitable Lions, and then Ghana, the Black Stars in what was it? They beat the U.S. in 2010 and came so close to the semifinal. So This is a really random World Cup. It's full of randomness, even more than usual.
It is.
Odd things that could really happen because of the oddity on the calendar and the place. So I'm going to say Senegal and the Netherlands, but boy, that's hard. That's a hard to peg, because I actually think the host could make it out with all the enthusiasm and rest that's going to be behind it.
All right, so let's get the Group B here. We got England, your former home country. We have
that's the
Iran,
one, in my opinion.
always a thorn to the United States, it seems, in soccer and politics. The USA and Wales. To me, this is a tough group, but I'm going to be honest with you. I know a lot of people think England's like this. They're a big heavyweight when they show up, but it always seems like they play down sometimes, or they blow teams out. And I don't think any of these games are going to be easy for England. I mean, Iran is not a slouch. I mean, right. Iran always shows up to the World Cup, and the last time I think they played the U.S. in the World Cup in 2002, I think, in France.
98,
wasn't it?
Yeah.
They beat the U.S. That was like the worst World Cup I remember, maybe other than 1990 for the U.S. I remember that a lot of high expectations for France 98, and the U.S. lost to Iran, and that was kind of a big deal. And Iran can play. They're not a slouch. I mean, they, like you said, they're in that Qatar, Japan, Australia, Asian thing. I mean, they can hang. I mean, I would not be shocked to see any of these 4 teams make it out of this group. I know England's the perennial favorite in the Premier League and everything else, and Harry Kane and everything. I mean, Wales is no slouch. I mean, you have Christian Bale and that. And it's ironic that before the draw that the USA and the Wales had a friendly about a month or two before they played each other, which ended up being a draw. Obviously, both teams didn't have all their best players for that matchup, but for the players who played, it was a draw. I think the USA and Wales are very close. And like I said, Iran, to me, is kind of like a dark horse. If they play up to their capabilities,
I think they haven't played each other since 2000.
I think they have a chance to get out of the group. I mean, obviously, England's the favorite. What's your kind of feel on this? This group is there's just a lot of weirdness, especially with England and Wales kind of being in that group with the USA and Iran. It's just a very Norman kind of group, I guess you can say.
It's a ton of English spoken in this group, It's just all over the place, the English spoken. And one thing to think about with Iran, I think, is how many fans will come, especially because the country is in upheaval now, but you would still think that it's just right across what we all call the Persian Gulf and what they call on this side of it the Arabian Gulf. So, people can't even agree on that in the world. But I like the England and the US in this group. I think, but you're so right about England. They could crash out. They have played for years and years with this heaviness that I think
they haven't won it since '66. They lost to Italy at home in the Euro finals.
They haven't been to a final since '66, and they had been to only one semifinal until they made it in Russia in 2018. So 2 semifinals since '66, and often, I mean, the Gareth Southgate, the manager, has done a fantastic job managing this. That's a hard job, but I hate saying this, but that draw in Russia to get to the semifinals, not the very strongest. I think they beat Colombia, which was very good, and Sweden, which was also good along the way, but there wasn't a real heavyweight in there. It was a bit favorable. I wonder about that sometimes. That place is going to go berserk if they.
Let me ask about England's struggles scoring goals as of late. Because there was a 10-month stretch up until that last UEFA Nations League game against Germany where they were already eliminated and things were kind of decided, more or less. There was a stretch where they didn't score goals for a long time in the past year. And, they lost to Italy. They had a 0-0 draw. They got smoked by Hungary twice.
How about that one?
And Hungary's no slouch. That team's a very capable team I think to watch out for in 2026. I thought they played France and Portugal very tough, and in Germany very tough in their qualification group at Euro 2020. And they were in another group, they probably would have gotten through. Hungary is not a slouch. I mean, England got knocked out of the A level in UEFA Nations League. They're playing in B level when that resumes. I mean, everybody probably thought it was going to be Hungary or Italy that was going to get it, but it was England of all teams. Besides those amazing new red jerseys with the blue numbering, which I love. They're the best England jerseys I've ever seen, by the way. Can they fix their offensive woes? Can somebody besides Harry Kane do something that's going?
One thing I've noticed in sort of going through all these teams is there seem to be a lot of teams that are in bad form coming in or down form from usual. And of course, that loss to Hungary 4-0 was the worst home loss for England in 94 years, I believe it was. So that was as much of a big blaring signal as could be in that situation. But they can fix it. And Harry Kane is a great goal scorer, and he's about to become their all-time international goal scorer. He's about to pass Wayne Rooney, I believe it is. And so they can fix it. But there's this whole, as I said, randomness about this that makes it really, really hard to decipher at this point. But maybe this bad form of late will help them, because the one thing they've suffered from for quadrennial after quadrennial is the weight of that nation that they're carrying around.
The heavy burden. Let's get down to Group C here. We have Argentina. I don't want to talk much about Argentina now because I'm pretty sure we're all going to say that they're going to get through. But we'll talk about them later, I'm going to assume.
Lionel Messi, of course.
We have Saudi Arabia in the group. We have Mexico, who's had their own offensive struggles right now.
Right.
And we have Poland, who's capable, but they're a one-man show with Robert Lewandowski. Let's go ahead and just agree. We all think Argentina is going to get through.
Yes.
Group. Okay. So we'll talk about them once we get into the groups, into the knockout stages. Out of these three teams, I've seen Saudi Arabia play once or twice. They're okay. I don't think they're as much of a heavyweight as Iran or Qatar or Australia or Japan, right?
Right.
In terms of Asian soccer. We have Poland, who they're not like an A-level Euro team, but I would say they're like on the bottom of that B. Like, they're capable of maybe in the right draw making, they made the World Cup. They had a very easy group to get in and qualify, via the playoff and everything. It was just a nice way to get in, and their matchup was really favorable. So they got in with that, and they beat Sweden, which was no easy task to do because Sweden can score a lot of goals, not the greatest defense. And then you have Mexico, who you thought was going to probably win the CONCACAF group, and they ended up finishing, third? in CONCACAF, second, third. Canada won the group. And I'm going to ironically say this. I told people 2 years ago Canada was going to get in when they were ranked 66th in the world. I said, watch out for Canada to come in the World Cup. It's going to happen. They're going to get in. You know, that generation is talented. But let's just talk about Mexico, because that's – can this team advance? Because, I mean, I've seen them, besides their 4-0 win against Iraq recently, which isn't really that good. I've seen them get smoked by Chile. I've seen them play like crap against pretty much every team. They had a 0-0 draw against Peru. This team cannot score goals against a decent team. Can this team get out of this group?
You know, it's funny thing. I expect it to. I would pick it to be the other one. But listening to you makes me realize that maybe I'm expecting it to, based on this extraordinary sequence of 7 straight World Cups going to the round of 16, but never passed it. And it starts way back in the World Cup in the U.S.
I mean, they played the U.S. once in the when they were in South Korea, and lost that game, which was like the greatest game in North American history, which the U.S. advanced to the final 8. Yeah, I remember that game.
This thing of getting to the round of 16 but not beyond it is so crazy and so old that it starts at Giant Stadium in '94 against Bulgaria on penalties. That's how the whole thing gets going. So it's almost like I kind of expect them to turn up. But now that you describe recent form, and evidently, you know, the manager is well aware that the country
midfield issues going on. It looks very good in midfield. That they're bright stars, almost like their goalkeeper who's keeping them in games.
Yes.
But the rest of that team, it's like very disjointed. You know, I don't think they play as cohesive as a unit as Poland does. I think Mexico is better than Saudi Arabia. I think the question is are they better than Poland? Because I've seen Poland play numerous times. And I've seen Poland hold Italy to a draw. I've seen them lose to Italy 2-0, 1-0, hold them to a draw. And I know Italy, that's my team. I know they're not in here of circumstances. But if it comes down to a cohesiveness, I think Poland's going to get it, because obviously they have the second best player in this group and one of the 5 best players in the world, right? It's ironic that we have 2 offensive juggernauts in this group, in Messi and Lewandowski. If Poland could just find some other guy to step up besides Lewandowski, they can make a little bit of a run, because they're all going to key on Lewandowski. But Lewandowski is going to probably get his against Saudi Arabia. So most likely that Mexico-Poland game is probably going to be for who's going to advance.
You're making me tilt my pick now. You know, like you said, Poland a one-man show, but that's a hell of a man.
It is.
That's a hell of a man.
They're not bad defensively as long as they play.
All right.
And they have played better soccer as a unit, right? They beat Sweden. Sweden is not a slouch. I mean, I've seen, Sweden is a good team, and they got past them. That shows me that Poland has handled themselves in this situation. I think Poland is more built for this kind of situation than they are a 6 or 7 team group play through, like the Euro qualifying, and there's 10 games, right? There's 3 games. I think Poland is more built for these situations. I think Poland's going to make it out of this. I think Argentina's going to run through every team, right? And Mexico and Poland will probably handle Saudi Arabia. I think it's going to come down to some type of goal differential between Mexico and Poland. And I think Poland, because they can produce goals, and I think they're a little bit more solid in the back than Mexico is, and that, where I think Poland will end up handling business. I think the difference will be Lewandowski and just team cohesiveness, and I think Poland will get in off of goal differential. And they might end up beating Mexico because, of that needing a goal to get through, and Mexico having to move everybody forward late in the game, and you know how that goes. And then a team counters and gets a break and scores that goal and wins the game because the other team has to get that goal to win on goal differential because they're behind. That's where I kind of see this. Mexico's going to have to put up a lot of goals against Saudi Arabia, I feel, to have a chance. And I don't know if that'll happen. I think Poland can put up 3-4 goals in the right situation. I'm not sure Mexico can do that. And then Argentina and Poland, Argentina will probably win, and they'll beat Mexico too. I mean, if Chile can beat Mexico 3-0, and that was with Mexico starting their squad here, what do you think Argentina is going to do?
Yeah.
Messi and Dybala and the whole crew. So something to ponder, Chuck, before that press article comes here in the next couple days here. I might be tilting those picks. Let's go to Group D. We have France, the World Cup champions, Australia from Asia. We have Denmark, who was undefeated and scored all the points they could in their group play and playing excellent soccer as of late. And we have Tunisia. Chuck, lead it off with you.
I saw one estimate saying that 35,000 Tunisians are headed here. And that, it's not far away. Not that big of a not that big of a population, so that's a pretty good chunk of the population. France has
we can have an attack on Tunisia, right, and they wouldn't be able to defend themselves when they're at Qatar.
Well, that I don't know if they have enough to get out, but it's going to be loud. Yeah,
I mean, the only issue with France is the injuries that they've had as of late, with Varane not being available, Paul Pogba not being here at this World Cup due to injuries. I mean, France is just so talented, but they have a weakness, I feel, and that's defense. If you can get into a scoring shootout with them, you can beat them. I mean, they did not go undefeated in their group and group play in Euro qualifying. I mean, Turkey for some reason, Turkey plays France well.
Right, they
had a draw with Turkey and then they lost to Turkey, okay? France has those games where they'll beat everybody, and they run into a team and they kind of get into a shoot. Like, look at Euro 2021, right? They were giving up goals, but then Switzerland put up 3 goals, including a penalty kick block, right? I mean, that game ended up in a penalty kick shootout in the end, which Switzerland won. Switzerland's not a slouch, and we'll talk about them later, right? But if France has one weakness, it's they fall asleep sometimes at the wheel. They got so much talent. It's like, I don't care. Go ahead and have it. That could nip them at some point, and I think they're very weak in the back. And losing Varane to injury in Premier League play, I think, and not having Pogba in midfield. I mean, they could have some midfield issues. They have all the talent up front with Mbappe and Griezmann and Conte and the rest of the crew there. I think their goalkeeping to me is a little soft. I know he's like one of the better keepers in the world, but for me, he's soft a little bit. Kind of showed at Euro 2022 when it comes to that group play. When the wheels come off, they come up. Yes, they won the Nations League, in Milan, and beat Spain. So when they want to play to their capabilities, they're more than capable of being the best team in the world or right there. But sometimes they fall asleep at the wheel. And will that happen? I mean, they should make it out of group play, okay? They should. I mean, I'll just flat out say it. France and Denmark are the 2 best teams in this group, okay? But Australia is no slouch and more than capable of making it out, I feel. I don't think Australia has played as good soccer as previous Australian teams. I think they're a little bit lesser on that. I mean, I think Denmark is maybe in a golden generation with that team.
Yeah.
Like, I think this team is a dark horse and can make a deep run depending upon how things work out. I think France and Denmark are more than capable of getting through with this. I mean, Denmark does have some limitations, but they can get through. I think Denmark's almost on a level. I would put them slightly below like Belgium is where I would rate them in talent. You know, like, but they don't have that one guy who's just like a complete star like De Bruyne is for Belgium, which just accelerates and makes everybody. They got a lot of talent along all the lines. They don't have one true superstar. But I think as a unit, they play fantastic, and they should be able to get past an Australia team that's not as good in 35,012 Tunisians.
And if we assume that there's a reason nobody's repeated as champion since 1962, if we say there's a reason for that, the French have exhibited sort of the ultimate examples of that in the way they tend to follow a great showing, the win in 98 and the final in 06 with just absolute implosion and entertaining implosion. But I think I'm Australia, when we talk about bad form, Australia's really bad form lately.
Yes.
And, I think France and Denmark
might be able to pull that one against them.
Yeah.
With that, but I think France and Denmark are a cut above the other two teams.
Yeah.
Let's move on to Group E, which I think is a fascinating group. We have Spain, Costa Rica, Germany, and Japan. Now, I saw Japan play the United States, and I think Japan is better than the United States. A lot of speed on that team, and they just can control the midfield. Costa Rica, I'm not expecting much unless they can pull a miracle like they did in Brazil in 2014. It's about their only hope. Spain is the obvious favorite in this group. Germany should make it out of this group. They have all the talent in the world there. But they're going through that whole transformation in Germany, veterans and youngsters, and you don't know which Germany team you're going to get. Are you going to get the team that blew the snot out of Italy? Are you going to get the team that lost to Hungary and lost to North Macedonia and lost to Northern Ireland? Which team are you going to get? Are you going to get a stud of Germany? And I mean, Germany should be able to run through Costa Rica and should be able to handle Japan. I mean, Spain's a cut above the rest. I mean, they should get out of this group. I don't see much out of Costa Rica, just watching CONCACAF. I think Japan, if they could have a miracle game against Germany, could get through because I'm very high on this Japanese team just because they have a lot of speed, but I'm worried about their defense in the back. But lots of speed they have, especially up front. My issue with, like I said, is central midfield play, particularly in the back, and their defensive play. And then I'm very high on Spain. Chuck, is that a pretty accurate assessment? Anything?
Yeah, you look at it and you automatically think Spain and Germany, especially after Germany's disappointment. I think 4 of the last 5 winners haven't gotten out of the group, and they became the next time. And they became the 4th one. I like them a little bit because of that somehow. But Spain, I've had trouble figuring out. Obviously, we're going from one generation, one very, very famous generation, fading almost entirely to another. What do you like about them?
Amazing ball passing skills, smart. They got a good mixture. I like the head coach. They know how to pass the ball. The only issue is they have that one lapse in the game and let a breakthrough go. This team can pass and this team can score goals. They don't have a true number 9, I would say, but they make up for it because they're just so talented. And I think they have a true breakout star in this tournament, the young 18-year-old midfielder. I think he's sensational. and plays above his years in maturity. And I think the world of him. And I think he could be a real breakout star for the team. I mean, honestly, I can see Spain winning it. I mean, I don't want to give away who like my finals picks are, but I could, you know, I see Spain doing some real damage in this tournament. And, you know, if the chips fall right, they could be raising their second World Cup. I mean, this, you know, I mean, their golden generation was 2008 to 2012. You know, um, I think they kind of, you know, they rebuilt a little bit and gotten a little younger. And, you know,
Yeah.
Morata and, you know, it's a good mix of veteran talent with younger talent that has come up through the ranks and they're developing, and they've kept that same ball passing mentality that they've had for the last 20 years, which is just a truly ball controlling dominant style. So I like Spain. Germany has the talent to get through the group. Japan may be a dark horse. Costa Rica, not much. Let's move to Group F. We have Belgium, probably their last chance with their golden generation. We have Canada, the CONCACAF winners in the group, which I called 2 years ago when they were ranked 66th in the world. I called it. I told people Canada was going to get. Didn't see they were going to win the group, but I said they were going to get in. So how ironic is that? We have Morocco, which won 35 games in a row.
Congratulations.
Until they lost in the African Nations Cup tournament. And we have the World Cup 2018 runner-ups, a very veteran but a little bit aging team in Croatia, which won their group in group play.
Which nobody's talking about.
Yeah. Which nobody's talking about. I mean, I don't think it was like the toughest group that they. Let's start with. We'll talk about Croatia and kind of go bottom up here. Croatia won their group, and it was a decent group, but I don't think it was like the toughest group. You know, there wasn't like a truly super dominant team in their group, and it didn't help. Like Russia was in their group, who was kind of contending, and then, you know, when war broke out, you know, kind of made the group a little easier. You know, they got through, right? They're aging. They're not as talented as the 2018 team is. All right. So that age and the talent, that, I mean, do they play as a team? Yes. Very cohesive. I don't think you're going to see like a lot of goal scoring out of them, but they're cohesive, and if they play tight, you know, they can get out of this group. I mean, it's not a definite they're going to get out of this group. Right. They should, but here's where I'm going to go. Morocco. It depends which Morocco team you're going to get. The one that won 35 games, but all their wins really weren't against great competition. Yeah, they beat Colombia, but you know what? Colombia isn't in this World Cup, and let's say that Colombian team didn't exactly have their A team out there when they were playing, right? I think they're the weakest of the group, but they have talent. Maybe they can pull a shot, but I don't expect them to get out. You have Canada, the darlings, I think, of this World Cup. Okay? They won their CONCACAF group. They beat Mexico and drew with Mexico. They beat the United States and had a draw. They probably should have won the game in the United States. This Canada team has Alphonso Davies, Jonathan David. This team in the right situation can beat Croatia and pull an upset. Belgium, it's their golden generation, the most talented team in this group. They should get through. They have a world star goaltender, De Bruyne, Lukaku, Hazard, who's played better in form as of late. Not maybe of his Chelsea day form, but better as of late. They have a lot of talent in Belgium. They should get through. I would put Belgium not like at a Spain and France level, you know, but I would put them like like at an England level, like an England, I think they're a little better than England. They're kind of like, but then they play down to their opposition sometimes. So they're kind of like at that England level, You don't know sometimes what they're going to play. They're the best team in the group and they should get out. Canada, if they play to their talent, can beat Morocco and can get a draw with Croatia. They in the right situation, they can hang with Belgium. I mean, you have Alphonso Davies, one of the fastest players in the world. They got all their issues are their back line. They're a little soft back there. But if they can play cohesive like they did in CONCACAF, they should be able to get past Morocco. The question then is, who's going to get past? Can they get past Croatia, or will Croatia kind of keep it together? The one thing you don't want to do in this group is get blown out in a game by Belgium, because you'll probably not get in based off goal differential. I think it's between Canada and Croatia for the second spot. You know what? I'm going to go out on a limb here. I'm going to take the Canadians to get through. It's something about this team I feel.
Mm-hmm.
It's something. As long as they can stay healthy, there's something about this group I feel. I know most people will probably pick Croatia, but I'm going to take Canada. But I'm going to go ahead and put up there. It wouldn't shock me that Canada flounders, first time in a World Cup since '86. But something about this group is just gnawing at me. I like it. They're better than this team is better than the United States. They've proven it. I don't care what people say. People might say no, but proof's in the pudding. They've handled Mexico. This is a new stage for them. They could get pumped and go on a major run and start a soccer revolution, or they could get completely overwhelmed with the moment and get smoked like a Thanksgiving turkey in Mesquite. I mean, Chuck, your thoughts, Shawn, on the Canadians?
Davies might be your guy to break out in the whole world.
He could be that guy that just elevates to another level.
Could be.
I mean, he's the best player in North American continent.
I'm going to go with Canada on this one because I want to say Croatia, but
he to me,
I say Canada because they play each other tough between the two.
Alphonso Davies is a success story, being in a refugee camp, moving to Canada, becoming a soccer star. He's already at Bayern Munich. He's the best player in the North American continent by far. This is his World Cup to dominate. I feel if he can just become a global sensation, North American. He has all the makeups. He's young. Was he 22 years old?
Maybe. Yeah, that's right.
I mean, he's young. He's fast. He's athletic. He scores. I mean, he's been playing at the top club level for 3 years now. 3 years. I mean, this kid was on the national team at 16 years old, starting. And he was already better than pretty much everybody on his team already at 16, better than most of the Americans and Canadians by 16. I mean, this kid is – it's scary to think what he could be in 4 years because, usually in soccer you peak at 26. And we're at 22 and he's already doing this. I mean, it is damn scary how good he could be. So,
and that's someone is going to write about it objectively. That would be a thrilling story to write about.
I think
if he were a breakout,
I think he could be the breakout star of this whole tournament. That's how much I love that guy's talent.
Yeah.
I mean, let's go to Group G. We have Brazil.
Yep. Group G.
We have Serbia, which actually won their group over Portugal. We have Switzerland, which won their group over Italy in an ugly fashion, but won nonetheless because Italy tricked and then tricked again in North Macedonia. I've seen Switzerland up close about 5 or 6 times, so I know a lot about Switzerland. This is going to be a really tough group. We have Cameroon. You probably know a little bit more about Cameroon than me, Chuck. Why don't you talk about Cameroon, and I can probably talk more about the European teams here.
I wouldn't say I'm a I wouldn't say I'm as good on Cameroon as I ought to be, but maybe in a few more days I'll have it. But the dramatic way in which they got into this thing, trailing Algeria in the
who is one of the favorites in the Africa
Exactly.
Cup nation, and
Exactly.
definitely a huge favorite in that African nation group and qualified to get in.
Yeah,
Cameroon
and it's
did
not
upset
easy.
Algeria.
Yeah,
I mean, that was probably the one shock of the African qualifier was Cameroon over Algeria.
and it's a dramatic goal in stoppage time, I believe. And just the kind of thing. I mean, I don't.
It's like a Disney movie. The thing a Disney movie.
Yeah,
pretty much.
I don't, as the Brits say, fancy them beyond this.
Oh, I agree. Yeah, that's kind of
that group is rough.
Group is my thing.
I think that group's harder than E, which is everyone is saying.
Oh, I agree. I think that to me, this group here to me is for 3 teams, it's the toughest group. Like Group D has France and Denmark, but that's 2, right? And then the talent level drops off. Where in this group, Group B, you have Spain and Germany, and then there's that separation, right? And you have Group B where everybody's kind of compact, but just not like an above level, right? Where these teams here, Brazil, CONMEBOL, they won the group. They lost to Argentina though. During group play, when they played Argentina twice, they did not beat Argentina. Okay, they had draws, but they lost to Argentina in the CONMEBOL Cup, right? In the Copa America. Argentina's got like a 36 game winning streak. So if they win all 3 games in their group play, they're going to set the record for both consecutive wins by a national team ever, which is currently held by Italy right now. But anyways, Brazil should get out of this group, but this Brazil team doesn't have like that it guy. I mean, you have Neymar, but they don't have a particular superstar.
Not like it used to be.
Very talented. This Brazil team's different than previous Brazil teams. Like they're talented and they dominated South American play. I don't know how good they are because their style of play is different than Argentina. And not all their guys play against European level. They're playing Brazil. And I think that hurts them a little bit. And I've seen Brazil play. It's like if you play them tight, you can mentally beat them. And I've watched a lot of their games, because I watched a lot of the coverage when they played on Fox, I mean, I'm a big soccer guy, right? And they were winning their games, but it wasn't like they were blowing out Chile. And, they were winning these games like 1-0, 2-1, 3, 3, you don't play the Bolivias of the world every game. When they played Argentina, it was 2 draws, right? Cool.
Right.
You played Ecuador, you handled Ecuador. Okay, cool. You beat Uruguay, who I think is a good team, but they're not on the level of Argentina. I think Uruguay is good, but I would put like Uruguay, like at Denmark. I would put them like at a Denmark type of level. I mean, Brazil should get out of this group
for sure.
But I would not be shocked if Switzerland got through this group. I'm going to talk about Serbia a little bit because I actually have some expertise in Serbian soccer, thanks to a friend of mine. They won their group over Portugal in epic fashion at Portugal.
Yeah.
Let me talk about a little bit about the history of Yugoslavia here. Imagine if Yugoslavia was still a country and had all that talent combined, right? You took the best players from Croatia and the best players from Serbia and the best players from Bosnia and whatever jigsaw puzzle remnants that formed that group. Could you imagine if Yugoslavia was a team at whole and sent 23 of their best players in the world?
Yeah, that's a great thought.
Not they would be, it would be insane. Now, I will say this. Serbia has all the talent to make it out of this group. Okay, they have Bahalik who plays at Juventus. They're a very cohesive, tight team, right? Their biggest problem isn't talent; it's mental letdowns. They always play down or up to their opponent. Like I saw them play Norway, right? Besides Holland, who's just a super stud. The problem with Norway is they got nobody else on that team except for Holland, right? Who might be the best young offensive player in the world right now. But there's nobody else. It's great you're beating the Israels and everything else, but when you get to Norway, when it comes to playing the top teams, they can't get past, right? Like when they played Italy in Euro, they got they were like the third place team in their group, and they didn't qualify, because it's Norway. They don't have all the other talent. They're always going to finish like third in the group because they can't get past because the rest of their team isn't developed. They're getting better as a team, but they're not there. Serbia beat Portugal. They got through the rest of the group. Serbia can beat Portugal. Okay, they had a draw, and then they beat Portugal. They drew with them in Serbia, beat them in Portugal. They can go on the road and be world beaters. But when they're underdogs, they seem to play with that mentality, like a chip on their shoulder. But when they're supposed to win games, they play down to the level of their opponent. It's like, Switzerland, let me say this. Very cohesive team. I would not be shocked if they won this group.
Wow.
Okay, I saw them play Italy 3 times in a 12-month. They lost to them at Euro, but then I saw them beat Turkey. I saw them beat France in a penalty shootout. This team can play. Okay, they have a really damn good goalkeeper. They've got a lot of talent. Now, some of that talent is Albanian transfers. They have because they're one of those nations where they'll let anybody in because they're like that neutral country and got the best hot chocolate in the world too, right? And good chocolate, right?
Hey, I didn't know about
they have
that
a lot
part.
of Albanians on their team that immigrated from Albania. That's why Albania sucks at soccer right now, by the way. Because if those Albanians were there, Albania might be a lot better rather than playing a friendly tomorrow against Italy. 10:30 on ESPN Plus, by the way.
Wow.
Central Time. Anyways, if you want to
Thanks for letting us know that part.
Any of those 3 teams can make it out of this group. I totally agree with the assessment that this is the toughest group. Let's just go ahead and write Cameroon up. Switzerland has talent. They're very good across all fronts. Defense, midfield. I don't think they're going to be able to control the midfield play against Brazil, but against Serbia they can. Okay?
Yeah.
Switzerland's going to have to go more on counters and go down the field, right? Brazil should win this group. It's going to come down to that Serbia-Switzerland game.
Yes.
I think Brazil should get out. I won't be shocked to see Serbia and Brazil end up in a draw. Okay? And I think Brazil should beat Switzerland.
That won't be surprising.
I'm going to be honest. I won't be shocked at any result among those 3 teams.
Yeah.
I think it's close. I could see Brazil just having a complete mental breakdown and not getting past this tournament. I am not a big Neymar fan. I think he folds in the clutch. And maybe they get through and then he'll fold in the quarters or the round of 16 and they'll have that mental implosion they seem to have throttled Brazil the last 3 or 4 World Cups, and, since that 2014 meltdown against Germany, 2018 they had a meltdown, 2014 they had a meltdown, and 2010, I guess you could say, right?
2010 up 1-0 on Netherlands in the quarters.
Right.
And
Yeah.
gave up 2 goals.
Exactly. I just think they're mentally weak and they should get through. The question is, I think that group is the toughest to pick 3 teams because I can see Serbia and Switzerland making it. Any of those 3 teams, I got to think on this a little bit. I mean, Brazil should get through. That's going to be the toughest one to pick for me between Serbia and Switzerland. Who's going to make it through? Real quick, because we're taking a lot of time here today. Portugal, Ghana, Uruguay, Korea, South Korea, in Group H.
Yeah.
I am not high on Portugal.
I'm not either.
Aging team. They got through. They had Turkey and North Macedonia. Yes, North Macedonia upset Italy. They had 2 home games to play during the playoff. They couldn't get past Serbia. Aging team. I'm not impressed with the midfield play. They don't have as much ball control. The defense isn't strong. Their goalkeeper is weak. Ghana, I don't know much about. Korea, very fast. Who knows? And you have Uruguay. I personally think Uruguay is the best team in this group. I think this group is probably the weakest group overall, other than maybe Group A. But I think the Netherlands is, if the Netherlands was in this group, I'd pick the Netherlands and Uruguay. But I think Uruguay will get in. The other 3 games are up for grabs. I mean, Portugal's going to have to have one of those games where they pull a miracle and put up 3 goals and win, and then just play ugly the rest of the way. But I think Uruguay's the best team. I guess I'll take Portugal. It's just such a weak group.
Yes.
I guess I'll take Portugal just because it's
mismatch.
I mean, if you put Portugal in Group B, in Group E, F, or G, they would not get out. But because they're in Group H, they're going to get out, I think, in an ugly fashion. And then they'll probably play some team in the round of 16, and they'll probably get smoked. So I don't want to say smoke, but an ugly game, which they'll end up with. In order for them to win, once they get to the night, they got to play ugly soccer. 1-0, penalty kicks, kind of like how they won Euro 2016. Like they got out of the group stage and it was just ugly wins to get through. And then Ronaldo got hurt in the final, and then they won it with ugliness in that way. That's kind of the only way I can see Portugal doing anything if they can get out of Group H. We have an aging Cristiano Ronaldo who's still kind of the star on that team. I honestly think he plays better on the national team than he does play at Manchester United. And but I think the rest of that team is not as strong as the Portugal teams as the past. Okay, so now we've got there. Let's talk about the knockout stages. Let's just go ahead and say it. I'm not going to throw the group sheet in front of you. Tell me the 4 best teams you have, and then we'll go from 4 to 5, even if they're not technically aligned.
Oh, you don't need them aligned to where they would.
If you want to, you can align them. I'll tell you who the 4 best teams is. I guess we'll pick who we think will then be in the finals, and then our champion.
Right. I'd say Argentina and France on the one side. I don't know if they're the best, but I am aligning them. In my head, I am.
For it. Yeah. I would agree with that alignment.
But of course, somebody out of Group A or B is going to the semifinals, right? I'm groggy, so
yeah. No, at least out of the quarters.
Somebody out of there.
The quarters, yeah. They all advance out of the quarters, yeah.
I guess I'll go with Netherlands maybe in that out of there. So I'll say Netherlands, Argentina. My mind is playing tricks with Brazil. You think about it's been 20 years. We're used to them winning at least every so often. What is it? 58, 62, 70, 94, 02. And then they lose to what? France, Netherlands. They get mauled, as you said, by Germany, and that Belgium
home, more or less.
Yeah, and that Belgium team
7-1 drubbing was at home.
Yeah, and that Belgian team that beat them in Russia was better than they were. I was there that night. They were better than they were. So I'm going to take Belgium out of that, and I guess Brazil. So I'd have Brazil, Belgium, Netherlands, and Argentina. I don't think those are the 4 best teams necessarily, but the way that I did it, I did align it. So
Okay, so hold your thoughts on that. Shawn, Stewart, what do you got for your 4? Shawn?
Okay, I got Brazil, Argentina. That's my first 2. Can you hear me?
Yep,
All right, can you hear me?
yep, yep. I can hear you, Shawn.
Okay, good. Okay, I was saying Brazil, Argentina. That's my 2. And then my other 2 would be Canada. I'm going to make a surprise. Canada and God, I'll say I'll say Switzerland. Those are my 4.
All right, this is what I've got going on here. Okay, I've got Argentina and Brazil. I got Argentina and Spain on one side, right? I think Argentina and Spain are going to make it to the semi.
Okay.
I'm very high on Spain. I'm going to be honest with you, because of the way of the draw. I think Argentina and Spain are 1 and 3 in terms of this tournament. Okay, the way that this draw is going, I like Argentina and Spain on one side. On the other side, okay, I'm gonna take Denmark. I root just something. I think they may not win their group, but the way they're gonna finish second, and then they're gonna come through and they're gonna handle the Netherlands, I think, right? And they'll probably beat whoever second place is and Mexico, in the Mexico side. Then I think they're gonna upset England, Netherlands winner, right? They're gonna make it on one half. On the other half, probably going to be Belgium, right? So I have Argentina and Spain in the one semi, and then I have Denmark and Belgium on the other half, right? Just because I think that half is weaker than the other half, because France and Argentina are going to have to play each other at some. If France can just get to the other side of the draw where Argentina and Brazil and Spain are, that's kind of, actually, I'm going to rephrase this. I think France will win their group. I'm going to put France on the other side of the draw somehow, right? I'm going to put Denmark on the same side as Argentina, right? I'm going to have France, and I'm going to have Belgium in the semis on the other side, okay? So that's where I'm going to go. France and Belgium, like you have Belgium, right? And France. I think the way that Denmark France group, I think is going to have heavy implications on how teams align. So, I could see Denmark upsetting France, and then, or the other. Put it like this: in that group, one of those teams doesn't want to be on the same side as possibly Argentina, Brazil, and Spain. That's a nightmare to go through. So I could see France, if they're looking at that in a mirror, just like, you know what, go ahead and just beat us in group play, and, we'll take second, and, or however to avoid that. Okay? Because the gauntlet in that side could be just brutal. I think the other side could be much. That's the thing with the World Cup, with the seedings of things playing out and the talent. It always seems like one side of the bracket is always way tougher than the other. Yeah. And I think Denmark, and I think France is a man, I think France is going to have one of those games against Denmark, and then the season's going to get flipped. And Denmark and like Argentina are going to end up, something. If France doesn't win that group, they could possibly play Argentina
right off the bat, right?
Right off the bat. And somebody's dreams are going to get dashed hardcore off the bat. I don't know if France wants to go through that. I think that when France plays Denmark, You could see one team wanting to lose on purpose to avoid the gauntlet.
That's
I'm
fair.
not joking.
Yeah.
And you could see it. You could see an ugly game. An ugly game. So be prepared to watch for it. Or it could be a game where if Argentina wins the group, those teams are like, man, as long as Argentina wins it, you could be like, oh God, we got to win the group to avoid Argentina here with this 39-game winning streak, and they're playing in excellent form. Everybody's healthy, excellent form. Messi's back. Dybala's playing great. Everybody's doing their thing. France is banged up. Denmark's on the. Who knows? I mean, whoever is on the other side of France and Denmark is going to make it on the other side of the bracket. Because I got Argentina and Spain. I'm sorry, but Spain is mentally stronger than Brazil. Brazil will fold. So I got Argentina and Spain in the semis, and I'll put whoever is on the other opposite side of the group between France and Denmark, and they'll play Belgium in the semifinal. Now we go to the semifinals and finals. Shawn, what do you got?
I got Argentina. Oh my goodness. I don't know what happened. Whatever. So I have Argentina.
Shawn went into the danger zone there, folks, with the aviator glasses on.
Exactly. This is probably one of the most toughest World Cups I've ever played in my life.
Oh, it is.
Especially the way it's
impossible.
Yeah. So, yeah. That's what I'm saying. It's very tough.
It's impossible.
Years ago. So I got Argentina and Germany.
Okay. And I would assume Argentina over Germany in the finals. Shawn?
Yes.
You have Argentina over Germany in the final?
Yes.
Okay.
I got Argentina.
Chuck, what do you got for your semifinals and then the finals?
I'm lining this up because of the way I write my groups, and I was tempted to pick Belgium to win the whole thing. I've kind of gone off that a little bit. Can we have a Brazil-Argentina final? We could, right? With
you
the way
could have a Brazil.
Yeah.
If both teams play first in their group, no.
Oh, right.
Then they would end up playing each other.
They're C and G. Yeah. And then I had in my mind a Belgium-Argentina final. Is that?
That is possible.
Yeah. And Belgium winning. So that's what I'll stick with, just because it's what I've been thinking.
Belgium to win the golden generation.
Just to be fun because it's so random. Man. Yeah.
Well, they did finish, the last World Cup in third.
Third, right?
In third. Let's not forget.
And there's a great semifinal with France.
Lost to France in the semifinals in a close 1-0 game.
Yeah.
So here's my thinking. I have Spain and Argentina, and I think that game it's going to be an all-time classic. Because of what I talked about.
That's what I'm saying.
about Spain having that mental letdown of letting a weird goal coming in and those kind of things. The only reason why I'm going to pick Argentina to beat Spain on that one side. Okay? I personally think they are the two best teams coming into this tournament. Okay? That's how high I am on both teams. I would say France, but I think the injury concerns and not having Paul. Let me say this though, that France has such offensive firepower with Mbappe and the other French guy at Real Madrid. I'm forgetting his name. He was a stud when they won the Champions League this year. He's back in form. Okay, he's probably one of the 3 or 4 best forwards in the game right now. And I'm sorry. Anyways, he's back. He was there for France at Euro 2020. Let me tell you this, he was probably the best player on the team, right? France is going to score goals, right? But if they're somehow if they don't that France Denmark thing just
No doubt about
handled the whole thing. For some reason I got to put France on the other side here, and they're going to play Belgium. They're going to beat Belgium. I think Belgium has some limitations to their team. It's great when they're in group play and they beat everybody. They beat the Wales of the world. They can beat the England. At Euro 2020, they did not look particularly good against playing England.
Sure.
And that's some concern. I put them at like an England level. Okay. That's where that's it. They're, you know what? They can't even beat Italy. And I've seen Belgium. I saw Belgium play Italy, and you know what? That game went essentially how I thought that game was going to go. Both teams played with their starters, and I've seen Belgium plateau. They got a lot of tempo, man. When it comes to playing Spain, they're not better than Spain. They're not better than France, and I don't think they're better than Italy. I know Italy's not in this World Cup. And you can say, well, you know what? When Italy plays the form, they're probably about the third best team in Europe. Okay? I don't think they're better than France. And they haven't played France in a long time as Italy, right? Italy owns England, right? Italy and Germany, Italy had one bad game against Germany, but then, they had a draw in the other game. And, they're due to have a bad game, want to. But, that continues. Where Germany's kind of all over the board, right? Belgium, I think their coaching has something to do with it. They got so much. I am not a Roberto Martinez fan in terms of his coaching. I think he's one of those rah-rah guys. It gets you so far, but the development isn't there. And they're a little bit weak in the backside. And their midfield is not as strong as it was 4 years ago. I think Denmark's a better team than Belgium now, 18 months later. But France is better than Belgium. Just a weird way of things breaking out. I got Argentina and France in the final. And then an ugly game, and France's defense will let them down, and Argentina will hoist the World Cup for the second time.
Third, right?
Third time, 78,
86.
96, and
yeah, that's third.
And there. I think Argentina top to bottom.
That'd be a hell of a
Very
story.
cohesive unit. Messi's back. Too much talent.
Martinez. Yeah.
I just think it's their time. And Messi,
This is supposed to be his last season
like the
playing World
greatest
Cup.
soccer player, maybe other than Pele ever after this, when they win the World Cup. So there you go. Golden Ball player of the tournament. Chuck, start with you. Who's going to win the Golden Ball most goals?
I'll go Vinicius, Brazil.
Shawn?
I got to go with Messi. I said Argentina.
I'm going to go with I'm not going to go with Mbappe. I'm going to go with the other guy, the guy that plays for France. Hold on. I got to... 1 second here. I'm going to tell you who it is.
Not Griezmann. You're not talking about Griezmann.
No, I'm not
Okay.
talking Karim Benzema.
Oh, okay.
He will win the Golden Ball in this tournament. He's on form. The man has just played like a... Hey, if it wasn't for him, they do not win the Champions League at Real Madrid. And he shows up for the national team. He showed up. He was the best player at Euro 2020 for France. It wasn't Pogba. It wasn't Mbappe. It was Benzema. Benzema is the heart. He had some issues with the previous French national team coach. He didn't play on that team for like 3 years. There was a big spat, right? and he came back for Euro. And he played him like a man possessed there. And then this past year, he's been in prime form. I mean, the only reason France isn't going to win the World Cup to me is two reasons. Center field play, and their defense is trash. There is nobody in that back four that I could tell you about. Varane was the only guy. He's at Manchester. He hasn't played particularly well. Manchester United spent all that money on him, and he hasn't done a damn thing.
He's hurt too, right?
And he's hurt. He's not even there. So they don't even have their best defenders. They're very weak in that back four, and they're very susceptible to set pieces. Okay? And that concerns me. They have a ton of firepower to get past, but you get in one of those tough, hard-fought, sluggo type of games, all bets are off. But they have the most firepower with Benzema and Griezmann and Mbappe and the, you know, like their front four and five guy Gerard, you know, and so on. I mean, they got the best up front by far in the world. But when you get to the back four and, you know, maybe the back five or six, you know, like two of the midfield guys in the back four and your soft goalkeeper, you know, that's your issue. You got all that talent, all of it. But it's going to let them down at some point. Could let them down before the finals. It's going to let them down at some point. And that's why I'm picking Argentina to win. And I think Benzema is going to win the Golden Ball. He's just played like a man possessed. He's in the prime of his career. I would have said Mbappe, but Benzema is just – he's a better forward right now than Mbappe is. And he plays at a better team and leads them. Real Madrid doesn't beat PSG and make all those comebacks and doesn't win the Champions League. The Korean Benzema isn't in that prime form. I mean, that game he had against PSG last year was a game of the ages. They were down in the second half, and he lit the world. That was a coming up. I mean, Euro 2020 and that game was a coming out party. I mean, I'll say right now that besides Holland, who's not in this World Cup, he's probably the best forward in the world right now. So, in my opinion, if he can play to the form he's played in the previous 18 months, that, you know, I'll even say the past 12 months, 15 months, if he can play to that form, he will win the Golden Ball. But that doesn't necessarily mean you're the MVP of the tournament. It just means you scored the most goals.
Right.
So who's your MVP, Chuck?
Wow.
Most valuable player of the tournament. It can be the Golden Ball winner. It can be a goalkeeper.
In my interest of being trying to be different, because it is such a random World Cup, I'll go De Bruyne for that.
That wouldn't be a bad choice at all. Shawn? Especially with you having Belgium going so
I said
far.
Lionel Messi.
Wow. Most goals and most valuable player.
No, I was saying, yes.
For the MVP and most goals scored?
For the MVP would be Messi. The other guy you mentioned,
Benzema?
can't pronounce his name. So I got Messi
Mbappe?
with the MVP. Yeah.
Mbappe for France? Okay, so you're picking.
Because it is going to be Messi's last World Cup, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep. Well, he's already won one World Cup. So
Exactly.
my MVP, I'm going to take Lionel Messi because you know what? The championship team, I have Argentina winning it all. I wouldn't be, De Bruyne, I think, is a really good pick because he's the glue that holds Belgium together. They're gonna make a run. Last one here. Two last questions. Breakout player of the tournament, like the top breakout. I know we have our Chuck. You got your your list there that you're prepared for the world to see? Who's the top dog? Who's gonna break out and be the man, that breakout guy, like the one everybody's gonna talk about?
I'll go with that Lautaro Martinez,
From
Argentina.
Argentina.
Yeah.
Shawn?
I'm looking at Qatar. I'm looking at a Qatar player. He may be I can't think of his name. He plays for Qatar. He may be like a breakout. I think it is. You know what is Kheicha? I don't know how to pronounce his name.
Those names are tough, but
Chava.
they got one. There's one guy in Qatar that's
say
been
his name.
putting up a lot of goals.
Yes.
So we'll go with him. I said it earlier in the show.
Yeah.
I got a lot of love for Canada.
No.
Since Italy's out of the World Cup, and maybe it's a little bit of a home, because I picked Canada to make the World Cup back when they were ranked 66th in the world. Okay? And they were like, we didn't even know if they were going to even get in to be one of those final 8 teams at that point for the World Cup, because they had to go through all the hexagonal things, right? So they had to play like Haiti, and then they had to, Canada's been on a long road to get to the World Cup, okay? And people don't realize this. They were like the last team to qualify because for the World Cup, for CONCACAF play, because like the top 5 teams in seeding automatically got in based off FIFA, but the other 3, right? So Canada was in that group where, they had to beat like the French Guinea of the world like 12-0 and play some other scrub island and beat them 10-0. And then they had to play, so then they, when it got down to like those final 6 teams for like 3 spots, they had to play like Haiti, right? And then they beat Haiti. And this was during COVID, okay? So they couldn't even play their games in Canada. They had to play their home games in some redneck town in Illinois. I am not joking. You can go look it up. They had to play Haiti in Illinois. I'm not sure if it was at the Chicago Red Star Stadium, but they had to play Haiti for their Canadian home game in their subset series in Illinois. I'm not joking. And Haiti let in one of the most ugliest goals I've ever seen off an own goal from 40 yards. You could go look it up on YouTube. It's ugly. Like, my son is 11 years old and he plays soccer. Not even he would have let a goal that bad and that ugly in. This is Alphonso Davies' time, I feel.
Gotta check that YouTube out.
I love the guy. My 2 dark horse teams. Actually, I have 2 more questions. I'm going to go with Alphonso Davies. 2 more questions, and we're going to end the show. Dark horse team.
Absolutely.
And who's going to be the biggest bust team? Chuck, we'll start with you.
Get
my biggest one would be Ali Wagner from Switzerland.
No, we're talking
Switzerland.
We're talking teams now, Shawn. Who's going to be your dark horse team, like team that a lot of people is going to advance far, that maybe some people want it, or a team that's going to, like, surprise and do some damage throughout the tournament, and then who your biggest bust is going to be as far as which team that's going to, like, highly rated is going to flame out. Chuck, we'll start with you.
Dark horse team. Oh,
well,
boy.
For the bust, I would have to say USA
really
for me.
Who is it, Shawn?
I say USA. USA would be the bust.
Is a dark horse? So you're picking USA to surprise.
I say Team USA. No, for a bust.
USA for a bust. And who's your breakout team?
For a bust.
USA for a bust.
I would have to say USA for a bust. They're going to be disappointed, especially in that tough division.
Okay, who's your breakout team?
For the dark horse, I would say breakout team. I would say Wales.
You're going to pick Wales to do some damage and make it out the group. Okay, interesting. All right, 2 teams from the same group. Interesting. Chuck, your breakout team for the whole tournament.
Because Wales is tough.
Breakout team Senegal, I think I'll choose.
So they're going to make it out of the group, and then
and I guess
can see that and then them doing some damage against the team in Group B and making it to like the Elite Eight. I can see that.
And Denmark wouldn't count as a breakout team at this point, would it?
I think they would.
Still a dark horse, yeah.
As long as they can get past like the 16, I think you could consider that.
And a bust. I want a bust. Portugal, I guess. A bust.
Okay, I'm going to say my breakout team is going to be whoever gets out of Group G between Serbia and Switzerland. Okay. You stole my thunder with Portugal, even though I think they're going to advance. If you put them in almost any other group,
that's fair.
I'm not, so I kind of got to pick another team because they're going to make it out of the group.
That's fair.
In terms of a bust, you know what? I almost want to pick England because, man, I am not high in this England team, but they're going to get out because of the same situation. My bust team, man. Probably whatever team doesn't make it out of Group G is gotta be. It's just such a tough group. And Portugal, man, it's so tough. You know what? I'm gonna say it. Mexico. That's my bust. You know what? You put them in Group A. Wow. Put them in Group B. You put them D, E, F, G, H. They do not get out of the group. The only group that they're going to get out of could be C. That's how. So you know what? If you put Mexico in the other 7 groups, they would not get out. So I'm going to say Mexico, that streak will end. And the only way that streak that Chuck talked about of making it to 8 consecutive Sweet 16s is because they're in the weakest 3 teams available left after the Argentina domination that comes. The thing that Mexico needs to avoid is a major blowout. Okay, because let's remember a little thing about about Mexico. They're prone to get blown out against these South American teams. 4 years ago, Chile blew them out 8-0. Okay, at Copa America, Mexico was the team that was invited. Okay, and they played each other, and Mexico got the straight doormat treatment. I watched that game, and I remember it clearly because I was teasing a lot of Mexican fans that day. And they're lucky Chile didn't beat them like 14-0 that day because the ball hit the post like 6 times. And the commentators were, those CONCACAF, it's just different. CONCACAF teams they're just not there. And if you put Mexico in South America, I would put them in a bottom level South American team, like Bolivia level, Venezuela level. That's where I would put them. Maybe above Venezuela, just slightly above Venezuela and Bolivia. I'd put them at about a Peru level. I have no faith in Mexico scoring goals. Their coaching sucks. They have no talent. Their midfield sucks. It's disjointed. And once they play some real teams, I will not be shocked if Saudi Arabia and Mexico end up in some kind of draw. Mexico should be able to beat Saudi Arabia. Like I said, if they were in any of these other groups, Mexico would get doormatted and not make it. I think Poland's a better team than Mexico. I think Poland plays more cohesive. I expect a Mexican meltdown, and there's no Mexican Coca-Cola to save this team. So you got to remember, this Mexican team almost didn't make the World Cup in 2014 if it wasn't for the USA. Bailing them out in Honduras by scoring lots of goals. USA didn't make the World Cup in 2018. And Mexico did make the World Cup, but not in convincing fashion. And this Mexico team is the worst Mexican team that I have seen since at least 1986. 1982. I'll say 1982. The worst Mexican team since 1982. I do not see them getting in. That's how ugly Group C is. It's just ugly. That bottom three is just ugly. Whoever makes the second team that makes it out of that group is going to get straight doormatted when they play France or Denmark. And it's not going to be pretty. All right, folks. Shawn, Chuck, any closing remarks? Because we got
Good morning.
Yes.
Chuck, I want to thank you for coming on. And
all I know is I better get prepared to watch.
I want to thank you for coming on and being able to see, all 8 stadiums from a view. And I want to thank you for your coverage. And everybody, you can follow Chuck.
Best Singapore.
Why don't you give your Twitter and everything else here?
Chuck Culpepper 1.
Yep.
The numeral 1.
Yes.
Yep.
You can follow me on Twitter and Facebook at S4A Stewart. The same thing on Instagram, and I also have a LinkedIn account.
So once again, you can follow Chuck Culpepper through the Washington Post and through one more time.
Through Twitter, Chuck Culpepper numeral 1, and also Instagram. So.
Okay. So make sure you guys follow Chuck with some really insightful World Cup stuff. He's going to be covering the World Cup here for the next 40-odd days or so. And hopefully he'll make a visit to the CONCACAF Cafe or whatever they call it. I'd like to see a picture of you with a thumbs up on your Facebook page if you do that just for me and Shawn. If you do, I'd like to see that. So, and say what's up to the Canadians. They're my secret dark horse. I'm rooting for Canada and Serbia this World Cup just because of Italy's out. But like I said, Mexico not going to do much, and I think we all kind of agree on the World Cup champion. Me and Shawn do, and you picked Belgium.
Trying to be funky, yeah.
Got to mix it up. I like it. Shawn, it's been a heck of a show. Chuck, I want to thank you for coming out today. This has been amazing. I'm glad everybody has now gotten this World Cup.
It was a very great pleasure.
Thank you very much, both of you. Thank you.
Yep, no problem. No problem at all. It's been a great show. I'm going to actually close the show out tonight. So for the S&P Sports Show, we want to thank Chuck Culpepper, my guest host. He's the man with aviator glasses, but he lost his headset and his helmet in an un-Top Gun-like fashion. Shawn Stewart and myself, Fantasy Football League loser this week.
And there will be a show Thursday, by the way. There will be a show Thursday.
Yes, Thursday show. I will not be here, but Shawn and a special guest will be because I'm preparing for the Angelman Syndrome Frozen Turkey Bowling Classic for my child. So we're doing that this weekend in Milwaukee. So raising money to help find a cure for Angelman Syndrome. So that's it, everybody.
Give me the link to that, by the way, so I can post it on the page, by the way.
Yep. It's on my page. You know where to find it. But I want to thank everybody and check us out on Thursday. Chuck, stay safe out there in Qatar.
Yeah, be well. Thank you.
All right. For everybody, S&P Sports Show, we're out. Have a great night, everybody.
All right. You guys take care.
You too.
1 hour and 59 minutes. That's crazy. We just fit it in.
We're out of here.
Chuck, thanks a lot for coming out, man. I really appreciate it. And
good morning. Good morning.
Yeah, get